Okay, so hi, Michaela. I know that you're an Intel Business Development Manager. Could you tell me a bit about your current roles and responsibilities at Intel?
Yes. So if I had to summarize my role in one sentence, it would probably be um, a customer-facing, forward-thinking technology strategist who uncovers market opportunities and market trends and comes up with recommendations and implements strategies to win market share. So what goes into that is working with, early stage startups and creating partnerships with them if, they create IP that we don't have the expertise at Intel to create. We partner with these startups so that we can, again, gain or maintain some market share in a certain application space.
Mm-hmm.
And part of what's involved with that is just understanding the market in general. So having a good understanding of like, what customers want and, where we should be investing our money and our time for the future in terms of working with those specific startups, or how do we change our product roadmap to be more attractive for our customers in the future. So that's it in a nutshell, really. And it's really cross-functional work. I work with a lot of different people at Intel to do my job. And I'd say one of the parts that I enjoy the most is the opportunity to work on legal contracts and
Mm-hmm.
craft agreements with these startups. And that's an area that I feel like just have like a natural talent in. So I like to lean into that part of the job because the education background that I have isn't in engineering, which for a lot of the people who work at Intel, they're traditional, have traditional engineering backgrounds education wise, and I don't have that. So I tend to lean into the areas of the role that maybe are less dependent on technical, engineering knowledge and more just about business savvy.
Very nice. Just for like reference, what does IP stand for?
Intellectual property.
Awesome. Okay. And so like from my understanding, like you help Intel like support these startups or maybe buy them out, kind of just like gaining that market share.
Yep, yep. So I haven't been involved with an engagement where Intel invests in equity in a startup. I haven't put forward a proposal to our executives for them to invest in a startup, but there have been cases where startups ask us for funding in a less formal way, like if they see a certain market opportunity and they say, "Hey, Intel, we think that we can put both of our companies in a competitive, um, make us competitive in this market, and you see the value in that. Will you
Mhm.
pay us money so that we can develop our IP, our intellectual property, on your technology, and so we can go to market as like a joint product?" So I've been involved in deals like that. Where we pay startups to like do work on our
Mhm.
products, but that's as far as I've gone with that.
Awesome, super cool. So is it like I don't know, from Intel, I just think of computer chips. So do they use that?
I work for the division of Intel that was formerly a company named Altera. So I think it was 2015, Intel acquired Altera, and we make a certain type of chip called an FPGA, a field programmable gate array. And for the past like 7 years or so, 8 years, we were referred to as the Programmable Solutions Group at Intel. And just recently, earlier this year, Intel announced that they're spinning us out to be an independent company again.
Mhm.
So in my division, we don't design and manufacture CPUs, which is the traditional, um, product that you're thinking of, computer processing unit, we design and manufacture FPGAs. So it's a more specialized type of product, and it's used for different applications, not used in like your traditional laptop computer, but can be used from can be used inside applications, anything from robotics to automotive, cars. And the team that I work in specifically is in the data center division. So we sell our chips to companies who design the chips into data centers. And the specific application space that I've been focused on in the beginning of my role was focused on financial services. So companies like Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley, who are big um, buy side and sell side financial firms that use our FPGAs to make trading decisions on behalf
Mm,
of their clients. So that's the market space that I focus on.
awesome. Thank you so much for clarifying. I'm like, all these chips. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. The landscape is honestly pretty big. Like there's CPUs, GPUs, ASICs,
Mhm.
FPGAs. There's a lot of different kinds of them. So yeah, happy to clarify that.
Okay. So I think you already kind of like said a little bit about your background, but how did you kind of get started and where has your career path like taken you?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I definitely don't have a traditional path that I followed. It's definitely been kind of an unstructured journey that I've been on because, like I said, I don't have the traditional electrical engineering background. So, what I studied in my undergraduate was actually corporate financial management. So,
Mhm.
that was kind of taking me on the path to be a CFO one day. And that's actually the division that I started working in at this company called Xilinx, which has since been acquired by AMD, which is one of Intel's biggest competitors. So I was at Xilinx basically right after I graduated in December 2016, took a couple months off, got hired at Xilinx in their corporate finance division, and I was doing revenue forecasting and revenue analysis for the company for about 18 months. And I was part of kind of an informal rotation program. And after the first 18 months, they wanted to rotate me into a different role within finance. And I just realized that I really was not as drawn to accounting as I previously thought I would be. Like in the theory of it in school, I really enjoyed it. But I think in practice, professionally, it wasn't as stimulating for me as I thought it was
Mhm.
going to be. So I ended up transitioning out of that path essentially into a more customer facing product marketing, business development type of role at that company. And I was focused on the automotive segment. So it was a risk that, the leader of that team took on me, being someone who is so young, not having experience doing marketing for FPGAs, towards that specific consumer base and customer segment, and really not knowing much at all and investing time in me. And it was also a risk for me, right, to completely pivot into a new field essentially. So it was one of the best decisions and risks that I ever took. And I'm basically doing a similar role at Intel, but like I said, it's in the data center division. So making that jump after being in the automotive team for, I think it was a little over 3 years now, to doing another completely different application space has been another big challenge that at first, seemed really daunting because I didn't know much, honestly, about anything about the data center. Now I feel a lot more confident in my knowledge, and it's been really interesting thus far, learning about all this stuff and meeting all the people who I have met in terms of customers and even, all the people within Intel. So it's been a fun ride so far for sure.
It sounds like you have a lot of experience. Is that like is that when what led you to this job, the work experience?
Yes, and also the personal connection that I had.
Mm,
So that was the main thing, honestly, that led me to Intel was when I was working as a finance analyst, analyzing revenue. I would create revenue reports for all the different market segments. So, like, for instance, the guy who was leading the automotive division, who was leading the data center division or the robotics division. I would create like revenue reports so they could analyze, who are their top customers, what were the top products
Mhm.
they were selling. So I made relationships with all of those leaders of those specific business units. And it just so happened that the gentleman who led the data center division at that time, he left Xilinx maybe a, a year and a half, 2 years before I did, and he went over to Intel. And I stayed close, in close contact with him after he left because we had developed a professional working relationship, and I always felt like he could be a mentor for me.
Mhm.
And he always, was really generous with his time, even during COVID. We didn't see each other personally that often, but I ended up reaching out to him in 2022, early 2022. We went and got a coffee, and he said that he thought that I might be a good fit for a role that he had open on his team. So it was really just due that connection that I had and leaning on my network
Yeah, that's so
to switch
amazing.
jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear about that a lot, but it's definitely like the networking gets you more.
Oh yeah, it's everything, honestly, especially you realize it more when you're in a tough environment like right now in tech,
Mhm.
like switching jobs is
Competitive
is not it's
layoffs.
super competitive. Yeah, there's a ton of layoffs. Like Intel today announced that they're laying off
Um,
15,000 people. So it's tough out there and your network honestly becomes everything.
yeah, scary time to have a job. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't mind sharing, what does a typical day look like for you if you don't have a typical day, maybe like a typical week?
Yeah, it's tough because I feel like day to day is diverse. So if I had to summarize it like what guides me on a day to day is like we have quarterly goals that we set for ourselves. A lot of
Mhm.
them, for the grade level that I'm at, we have like 4 to 5 or maybe 3 to 5 that we set for ourselves each quarter. And the majority of those for me have to be related to like, how am I going to find new partners to work with, or how do I figure out how to like generate more revenue for the company? And this doesn't happen every day, but like, again, a lot of what guides us outside of those quarterly goals is thinking about what is our long-term strategy for our specific segment. So if I look at like financial services, right, how am I going to penetrate that market so that I have the Goldman Sachs and the Morgan Stanleys of the world like buying our products,
Yes.
now and in the future. So, like I said, it's not a day-to-day thing, but a lot of what guides us is figuring out like what is our strategy
Mhm.
to make money and to win market share. And some of that, can come down to like urgent asks from our executives, like, hey, we need to update our 5 year, financial forecast for your specific market segment, like, and we need you to turn that around in like a week.
Ooh.
So, yeah, so those like type of urgent things do happen. And, we're in a phase right now too where we're trying to plan for our next generation family that's going to tape out within the next 5 years. And so we have to have that long term view and that long term horizon that we're forecasting towards. And yeah, so that's a big part of it. The other part of it is day to day just interfacing with the existing relationships that we have with customers and with partners. So I'd say within a week span, I have at least 4 or 5 different meetings with external companies, just,
Mhm.
working on reaching milestones for a particular project that we have. Getting a status update from them on like traction that they're having, selling their products into the market. And right now, for instance, we're gearing up for an event that we're hosting in our San Jose office in September called Altera Innovators Day,
Mhm.
which is where we're going to have technology demonstrations in person at this event. And we invite customers to come see the demos and stuff. So there's been a lot of just managing our partner presence at that show and figuring out what is our messaging going to be for the particular demo. And so that's the part of the job where at Xilinx, I did that a lot. I managed,
Mhm.
a lot of the outbound messaging for our automotive team. And that's an area where I feel like I have more of a natural strength or a natural talent is developing messaging and positioning. So this is the kind of stuff that I really like. And that's what's been taking up a lot of my time recently too.
It also sounds like you do a bit of like consulting almost with other companies.
Yeah, in a way, yes. I mean, we're technically not, a venture capital team,
Mhm.
but we do kind of have to put on that hat of venture capital hat because companies do come to us, like I said, and ask for money. And, that's not like our traditional business model. So really, we have to put a lot of, judiciousness into like into judging, what these companies are asking us for and, figuring out is it worth our time to invest in this project, to invest our time and our money into this company? What are the indicators of success that they already have and how well connected are they in the industry? Like, so we
Mhm.
do kind of have to put on that consultative mindset when startups are asking us for stuff.
Yeah. I guess skipping forward a little bit for number 7 and 8, how do
Mhm.
you what tools do you use to stay updated with like where these companies, startups are going? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, Intel has paid subscriptions for research repositories that I use for market analysis. So I rely heavily on that, and I'm so happy that they continue to invest in those research reports like Gartner and IDC. These type of companies, they have free reports online that people can utilize, but for the real, like, detailed stuff that we need, it requires a paid subscription. So I stay up to date on market trends through that. But for other forms of news and data, I definitely use this website called The Information, which also to get access to certain reports, and these are more like journalist reports, but to
Mhm.
get access to certain reports, you also have to have a paid subscription for that. But even just the headlines sometimes are actually really useful. So the information is one, and then um, for things that just help me outside of gaining market knowledge, a website that I came across from one of my old colleagues that really helped me is called First Round Review. And that website is more geared towards content that helps, I'd say, founders and early stage startups, like
Mhm.
topics ranging from like how do I create the perfect pitch deck or how do I figure out my product market fit. I think those type of things are helpful for someone at any type of company and for a young person too getting into the job market. They have um decent advice on how to manage up. Like, how do I help my manager and anticipate what my manager's needs are? I think that's something that's super helpful for someone young just getting into the workforce. So, yeah, if you're trying to stay up to date on technology trends, I'd say the information or the medium or TechCrunch would be good ones. And then for more like behavioral stuff or just ways to understand like how to make your own company more successful, I'd say utilize first round review.
Mhm. I searched it up. It has a lot of articles, I feel like
Yeah.
helpful to anybody, any age.
Yes.
Okay. I think that is a good answer to 11. So I will,
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right.
yeah, because it was almost a perfect answer. I think resources are great.
Thank you.
So jumping back to 4, what skills or qualifications with a soft skill focus do you think are essential for someone in your position?
Something that I've been challenged with recently is it sounds weird, but empathy. So understanding if you're maybe having conflicting interests with someone internally, let's say, like within your company, trying to really put yourself in that person's shoes and understand where they're coming from and trying to understand what
Mhm.
challenges they're dealing with in their role, I think really helps level set the conversation because it can take a conversation that may start to become contentious or conflicting and really just level set. Like if you just put it out there in a conversation like, hey, I know we're not agreeing right now. I'm trying to figure out a way to do that. I understand that you may be, going through XYZ challenges in your role. I know that your management might be asking you to do something. And I think approaching tough conversations or maybe, shifting conversations that are becoming contentious and just trying to level set and show the person that like you are trying to understand what's going on in their world so that you guys can come to a decision, a mutually beneficial decision, I think is something important that is not easy to do.
Yeah,
Because
working
like
for
you
people.
can get wrapped up in your own stuff and you get, frustrated when things aren't going your way and, people aren't doing like what you want them to do.
Yeah.
But you got to remember that like everyone's going through their own stuff. Everyone's trying to like please their manager in some way and balance all these things. And I think just reminding yourself and just being mindful that empathy is like really important starting out in your job for sure. And then I think when I look at the most inspirational leaders in my organizations, they really tap into that too. So it's an essential skill that I think what is really helpful to practice when you're new at work because the
Mhm.
more that you've developed that as you grow in an organization, like the better off you'll be.
Yeah, team bonding. I think all of these like tech companies, you're sort of on a team with other people, and it's like communication's one of like every single person has said it. So I
Yes.
think you
Yeah.
delved a little deeper into empathy. So I like the answer. Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome
Telling you, I
insights.
struggle with it still though. It's a tough
Yeah, people
one.
can be the worst.
Yeah. And the best.
True. So do you want to skip 5 or we can go to 6?
Um, no, we can do 5. I
Okay.
mean,
Just
one of the
timing wise for
biggest
you.
challenges. Oh, no, I'm good.
Okay.
I'd say one of the biggest challenges is dealing with so many different personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And it really ties back into the answer for 4, which is
Yes.
like we are all juggling so many things. And I think if you don't have a handle on what your stress triggers are, like you can easily get overwhelmed. And so for me, one of the biggest ways I try to combat that is by taking time away, like taking time for myself, like going to go exercise or
Mhm.
trying to go just like take 5 minutes to clear my brain and chill. That's like one of the ways that helps me get through those challenges of just like feeling overworked and maybe just like burnt and then dealing with people maybe who aren't doing what I want them to do for lack of a better way to say it. That part can get overwhelming. And then one of the other big challenges for me, and I kind of touched on it, was that I don't have, a technical background. So I feel like I already come into the role at a deficit from
Mhm.
the like hard skills
Yeah.
standpoint. And so the way that I can overcome that is just by educating myself more, diving into things more, asking more questions, not being afraid, to ask my more
Mhm.
senior teammates for help. That's one of the biggest things I'd say is going into a job, being curious and asking questions. I think it's not a negative thing. It's a very positive thing, and I think people who are willing to help will
Mhm.
see that you're ambitious and that you're trying to learn with the goal of helping the organization. So,
Yeah. You said very aware. I think if there's more people like you in the world, it'd be a very much better place. Yeah.
uh, I'm all right. I think I'm pretty great actually, but no,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Thank you for saying that. That's really sweet.
Shoot. Better your day, right? But what do you find most fulfilling about your work?
What's most fulfilling about my work? So, the executive my direct line of managers, like the executive staff, they are really personally invested in my growth. And so that's something that I find personally and professionally fulfilling because if they weren't, I would feel just like drained and used. You know what I mean? So I,
Mhm.
I really appreciate that even in times where, like literally yesterday, we did a performance review of my performance for the quarter, and my boss had a couple areas of improvement for me. And I was like, honestly, thank you so much for taking the time to analyze me. Like, you don't have
Yes.
to take the time to do that. It's a blessing when someone gives you feedback. And so I really take that stuff seriously. and it does oddly make me feel fulfilled that someone is taking the time to want to help me improve. I think that's
Mhm.
something that is so important. And for me to feel like, okay, maybe, you know, like selling chips to financial services companies, like, am I making the world a better place? I don't know. Like, I don't always feel that direct connection of like, oh, I am
Mhm.
making the world better. I'm fulfilling like goodness in the world. But, it's helpful when I'm doing this job and people are invested in me. That makes me feel good.
Yeah, a lot. So like personal career growth, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I guess, are there any misconceptions about your job or industry? I think a misconception I answered was Intel produces all CPU chips.
Yeah. I don't think there are misconceptions about the industry. I mean, it's yeah, I don't know. I'd say no,
Yeah,
honestly. Just a quick
I
one.
can't think of anything
Yeah.
either. The title is very specific.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, if you hear meowing, it's the cat.
Cute. I love cats.
Looking back, is there anything you had wish you had known before starting your career?
Mm, it's okay to make mistakes.
Fair,
It's okay.
fair.
It's okay to take calculated risks because that means you're learning. Like if you failed while taking a risk, you learn from that failure and you grow stronger. I think I was really concerned about people's perception of me, and that's actually not a bad thing, but when you over rotate on that, it can
Yeah.
become detrimental to your own growth because you're stuck there like worrying about that when you could be using your brain power to like actually solve the problem at hand or like analyze what needs to be analyzed. So I'd say, yeah, if I could tell myself something before that I didn't know, it would have been like, hey, it's okay, like to make mistakes. It's,
Hmm.
it's honestly, it's probably better to do that earlier because then you're probably learning at a more rapid clip versus being so conservative.
Yeah.
And then it becomes even scarier later to take risks and fail. So that's one thing I would say.
I think like the mindset changing. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna end the recording now.
Okay.